Bom dia, é prazer estar aqui na Triennale. Obrigado pelo convite. So it's a pleasure to present today the panel Achieving Sustainability in Architecture, and the three people with whom we will be engaging in a conversation, and to do it in this framework of the Open House Europe, a Creative Europe, European Cooperation Project. If we ask an architect to name the most important issues facing design today, probably one is bound to be sustainability. We've already spoken about the use of the word sustainability, how to live responsibly, ethically, and environmentally. That's the easy bit. But while most designers, we will agree that sustainability is important, we're very likely to disagree when thinking about, for example, what exactly is sustainability design, what constitutes success or failure as well, on what criteria. So we will have kind of different answers to what sustainability in architecture is and how to face it as well. And I'm sure that you will see it, I think, or I hope that we have a little bit of quarrels and discussions over here with the three guests. These disagreements might also pose a big challenge for all of us when we're trying to change our habits, which is something which is essential right now. We need to address what it means to produce architecture globally in the interest of the world, but to understand it from local desires and realities. Here we could speak Basque, Italian, Portuguese, Catalan. Behind each language, there's a culture and a local understanding, different ways of making spaces of differences. English has become the hegemonic language, but architecture speaks languages. Globalization has produced a space of hegemony, which carries ideologies, it carries agendas, spaces, or constrained spaces, and we need to break from that and expand it. We want to meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So to speak about all this, today we have Marta Álvarez Pastor, who is one of the four partners of Vaumm Architects, welcome, located in San Sebastian, in Donostia, in the Basque Country, where they work internationally operating under a strategy of adding. You speak about adding goals, hope, efforts, and experiences with a broad sense of curiosity and research-based methodology. You work with specialists from diverse disciplines, conceiving projects thoroughly and crafting buildings and spaces carefully, exploring the intersection of contemporary design and building production. You have works in different scales as well, different angles, and you have a broad experience in transforming existing places. You studied at the School of San Sebastian in the Public University of the Basque Country, enjoyed an Erasmus scholarship in your admired Rome, and since the foundation of Vaumm, you've pushed towards landscape architecture for the respect of integration in every context and towards the expressiveness and sensitivity of materiality. Gianandrea Barreca, and together with Giovanni La Varra, founded Barreca La Varra in Milan, Lombardy, in 2008. But they have been collaborating since 1999 when they established Boeri Studio. They present themselves as a studio that envisions behaviors, allows fondness, suggests possibilities. They activate unexpected questions and unforeseen occasions. You nourish the hope of being involved in building a consciously sustainable future. You are driven by research-based experimentation, design spaces for living and working with few boundaries, spaces for healthcare, education, leisure, and so on. And you define your architecture as eclectic, tainted, optimistic, respectful, disruptive, suitable, hybrid, flexible, sustainable, there we are, experimental, contemporary, detail-oriented. Most of your works are related to nature, and Gianandrea has classified them as architectures that imitate nature, architectures that are interconnected with nature, architectures that host nature, architecture as landscape, architecture in the natural context. And Francisco Adão da Fonseca, first with Scray and now with Oficina Pedrêz. You work with applied materials research projects, bringing together the different disciplines of architecture, from technicians to artists, academics, under a multidisciplinary point of view, and with an experimental approach to materials and construction. So by experimenting with raw materials, and we'll see this right away, and construction tools, you've been able to develop unique solutions allowing to manage the construction site. In your work, construction and craftsmanship techniques combined with civil engineering and material physics, resulting in a personal architectural language built from the way materials can embody knowledge and how this knowledge can be instrumental in defining the practice of architecture. In one of your projects, you claim in this video, the industry has to work with the forest. So I wish to thank you for being here with us today. We will sit down, and Marta, the stage is yours.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. It's very stimulating to be here surrounded by such interesting people. I would especially like to thank Jose Mateus for the invitation, Ivan, Blasi for your warm introduction, and my predecessors for bringing us sustainability closer in sharing your points of view. We like to describe our Studio Vaumm, as Ivan introduced, as a team that wants to function as a constellation of 7 people, based on the confrontation of ideas, where the sum of multiple layers of visions, concerns, and obsessions are involved in each project, in its context, away from the methodology of architecture of author. I'd like to start in terms of sustainability. Video, I know it doesn't work at all, but as I'd say, I would like to start in terms of sustainability by illustrating in this comical way of the Marx Brothers train scene by telling us and reflecting where we come from as a society. It is, for years we have consumed resources without looking back, without looking both sides, without thinking about tomorrow, in the idea of supposedly moving forward. And with enormous joy, as you listened, timber, timber, without knowing where this attitude was actually leading us to. With this metaphor of the film, we are trying to make visible the unconsciousness of the past, and we would like to generate some impact in mind to reaffirm together our engagement with sustainability. I would like to focus my presentation on sustainable issues related to the architect's skills on defending the good practices that we have at our fingertips, rather than focusing it on technical issues, which are also important, but are usually more present in the discussions. In addition, sustainability cannot be the sum of recipes for success if sustainability is not well integrated in the architectural project, because sustainability on its own may not become architecture. We like to highlight this definition by Jaume Valor, that after assimilating the fact that resources are limited, what comes next? In line with the idea of constellation, we propose a work through 6 overlapping concepts towards sustainability, which can be reflected in 6 classics and in 6 of our projects. Starting with the concept of flexibility, a classic concept, it is intuitive to realize that thanks to movable partitions, generous and equipped circulation spaces, we will multiply the possibilities of use of the space towards a greater intensity of use. As in the Katsura Imperial Villa, it is ingenious to use the space, the same space, but in different configurations, proportions, relations, lightings, and sizes, in order to get out more of the space. In this project for the Zuriola Primary School, flexibility went hand in hand with a profound change in the pedagogical program. Once the volumetry and circulation spaces are organized, I could like to put the focus on the group by 2 smaller classrooms facing west, together with its proportional part of corridor and its larger classroom facing east. It is up the will of each teaching activity to be able to open it and use it with all these combinations in combined, enlarged, linked, or isolated ways. Even the staircase becomes a library. So such clear spaces let the future the future issues be easier integrated. So, in parallel to Mies' sentence, less is more, I could say space flexibility is more sustainable. With this play on words, spaces without function, function without spaces, I mean that there is no need for a direct relationship between space and function or function and space. In these images, you can see how function makes its way into unexpected situations. In a library after bomb raid, in an uncomfortable armchair by Bruno Munari, and it would have been even more adapted if in the same space we left the conditions toward undefinition. In this project for the refurbishment of the old Quona bakery into a library, the interior spaces are designed in a non-restricted way in order not to condition the next possible new use for the unimagined future. Just with the use of curtains and color and mobile furniture, with all the book storage organized around the perimeter like a thicker facade, all the activities and conferences can find their place. So far from projecting on single-use cases, we could let the building to evolve. So resilience gives more chances to the building to evolve. So undefined space is more sustainable. In this regard, there is also a natural development from the architecture of undefined spaces into infrastructure of undefined spaces. This is achieved by moving away from the image of a restricted finished building that allows even crazy uses to be integrated, and it is the case of the Rolex Center by Sana in this provocative image. Besides, in this project for an urban link with two garage buildings, in order to let the image far away from its traditional image of garage building, we have worked to give a public vocation to the building for the future in an open sense. There are a few materials: structure, permeable facades, green roofs, and colorful indoors. So it is transformed into an infrastructure prepared for the future, perhaps due to design it far away from a finished building. So infrastructure is more sustainable. Another step towards sustainability is the reversibility. This work, I'm sure you know, called Set Both Set by Simon Starling, is very interesting because it shows us how through reuse, construction materials can have a longer life or more lives, rather than ending their useful life as a waste. So for the exhibition, the artist decided to put the focus on a traditional wooden set found on the riverside. So thinking about how to transport it from its riverside to the museum riverside, he conceived its own transformation with the available resources. That is to say, he transforms the set into a boat, uses it as the method of transport, and rebuilds it in the museum. And it was funny because the people in the museum were trying to recognize the pieces of the boat now reintegrated into the set. But what is important is that it shows us an attitude of adding one more layer to his history. So all construction materials should be like this, in transit, reversible at least. So therefore, what is removable could also be projected. In this regard, this is in this project for a garage building under construction, the structure and facades are conceived as reversible in a dismantled way. The structure is composed by steel columns and beams and precast reinforced concrete slabs. In our opinion, the key is the design of the structural joints so that the building can be assembled and disassembled like an IKEA piece of furniture. All the advantages of the industrialized construction are present. Faster construction, better quality of execution, more three-dimensional control, more safety for workers, less mistakes, use the steel that supports, in our case, local economics, and above all, a drastic reduction of waste on the site. In this case, even the architectural facade, which is key for the integration of the infrastructure into its surrounding, is designed to be reversible. So reversible is more sustainable. Concerning new construction, we can see a way. But what about interventions in existing buildings? Cedric Price already showed us a way through 6 intervention strategies: reduction, addition, insertion, connection, demolition, and expansion. Although it's true that now total demolition is questioned, especially because in every construction there is a large amount of energy implicit that cannot be disregarded. This is the message in several of the works of Lara Almarcegui, where she exhibits the construction materials. Materials are not important by themselves, but for the idea that they express. Faced with the equivalent materials needed for construction before demolition, it makes us question if demolition is really the only answer. So these actions are attractive to us because they generate some resistance, especially facing the dynamics of construction and destruction of the past. In parallel to this concept, let me explain the project for a refurbishment of the old Zarauz Palace in this beautiful coast village called Guetaria. The municipality took an absolute sustainable decision, which is to bring the ruined palace back into use, instead of consuming more land on the periphery where there is no service. The Zarauz Palace is a very old building attached to the Church of San Salvador that houses Roman ruins and whose first tower house dates from the 13th century. It was originally the home of the lords of Zarauz, and over the centuries it has suffered important transformations, extensions, even collapse due to the naval war, and so on until its ruin. So these are the 4 masonry walls that have survived. As you can see, it has a privileged position in the village, facing the entrance to the church on the main street, and the rest of the facades facing the sea. Within the 4 walls, one of the buttresses of the church is preserved as an expression of a past conflict between the church and the lords over the ownership of this land. Once the walls had been restored, we decided to begin the project by highlighting the presence of the buttress, giving shape to a large void with a vertical courtyard with zenithal light, in which buttress would function as a sculpture. And the other starting point of the project is that the proposal is understood as one more intervention, not the last in this long process of construction. With the maximum respect for the heritage, in the idea of non-conditioned future interventions, the proposal, as a resume, had to be reversible, flexible, as function as an infrastructure. This means not modifying the facades, not supporting the new structure on 16 walls, building a new freestanding foundation, and designing a mass timber structural system with a removable connection. In the end, the structure, prepared to be able to add more slabs, get a spatiality, transformed from palatial domestic architecture in the scale of a public building. And it has allowed us to build the 5 floors in 3 weeks. Once again, the advantages of industrialized construction are repeated, and the more time we lose in the design phase, the less waste is generated on the construction site. The use of wood also as a sustainable material has also led us to recover very expressive spaces on the lower deck and the views of the church tower. This higher floor allows us to finish the sequence of ascending spaces looking towards the sea, as if looking to the future. And one last sustainable detail regarding the window openings that were lost, which most of them are bricked up. It is documented where they have existed. Well, so after much reflection, our decision was not to condition the future. So where behind the facade there will be a museum program that doesn't require natural lighting, we didn't dismantle the brick. We covered it with a natural hydraulic lime mortar and added a recessed metal rim which outlines the arches in their real position and which can help us to express the complete composition of the facades. In this way, the architecture also becomes narrative architecture. So transforming heritage or existing buildings is more sustainable. Finally, we would like to focus on green infrastructure, being aware of its importance in our lives, although this is apparently not the main objective. That is why we have titled the proposal, "Nothing is what it seems," because wherever is the program, the user, the context, it is always the most appropriate to incorporate green infrastructure. In our territory, many contexts are classified on this slope intermediate, where topography is an ally for integration. So our concern is to preserve nature by integrating these infrastructures into it, moving away from the image of a building object on an artificial platform. So this is the case of the Basque Culinary Center, where thanks to topographical infrastructure with green roofs, the presence of the building is minimized. Sloped surfaces on various levels give continuity to nature between the surroundings and the infrastructure. So two sides architectures emerge, which adapt their expressiveness to its context, where the protagonist is the continuity of the green infrastructure. So greening is more sustainable. To conclude, I would like to leave an open question about what should be our role and our vision of nature, but criticizing our traditional attitude of superiority towards nature instead of being aware that we are just another inhabitant and that our survival depends on our attitude. Because I'm sure that if we take care of nature and put it in center of the stage, it will be good for its inhabitants. Thank you very much.
Body thing. It was a show of project we have built here. That we have developing in over the past year, which can contribute to the discussion today for the topic about GD sustainability in our actions. the project you are going to see are often the result of a collective work and with, of course, fellow artists, engineer companies, experts on that topic. And I'm grateful to whoever worked with us, and you can find in our website the information about the colofon, the detail of the project that are all located in Iran. They have importance information, because of course the project that I will show you first of all are answers to the local question. So I maybe have to mention before is an answer to local question that could be probably also an invitation to reflect in which way it can be global. At the same time, consider Milan, that is an important city, an international city, it's possible that some local practice could become also interesting to be a quieter place. Analyzing our works, working with my colleagues, preparing this speech in the last... See, does it work? With this one? Okay. So I need a third hand to manage other things, but it's okay. That's it. No, I do it. Don't worry. So try to group some of these projects in 3 sets. Like this. Okay. These 3 sets are different in scale, in intervention, in location, in type of clients, and in real estate segment to which they refer. But at the same time, they are united and unified by the idea and desire to search and seek for each them the best sustainable development strategies for the city's architectures. These 3 sets, and they could be this my offer to the debate today, could define some possible action or practice toward a more conscious and balanced urban development. I don't think there is one single possibility and one single sustainability way to approach the project. And I think it's more correct for each situation to find the right sustainability or sustainable objective to achieve. Of course, I don't believe that there is a single and valid solution for every physical, economic, and social context, but we have tried to build these 3 sets of projects outlining 3 possible practices that can be eventually replicated from time to time with the additional or corrective measure in relationship to specific need. You can see this one are 3 topics: more nature, extensive regeneration, a small space to be handled with care. And in synthesis, and basically these 3 sets work on this way. The first practice has to do with quantity, intensity, and visibility. And the goals means add and teach. Add more nature and try to use the occasion to teach to the other one in which way you can do it, or you can increase the nature in architecture, because it's not so easy as it could be imaged. The second has to do with extension, complexity, and articulation. Structure, and the goals could be structure and connect. So use the idea when you intervene in extensive space that is an occasion to connect this area with the other part of the city, reducing some dramatic effect of the movement of the people. And the third has to do with selection, precision, and diffusion, and means choose and learn more. So pick up one topic and try to go in deep in only one, because sometimes it's impossible to cover all the different aspects of sustainability in architecture. Starting from the first, it's true that if you plant a tree, I don't change. Okay, it's clear that if you plant a single trees in a traditional mineral buildings, in a traditional mineral square, in a plaza, you change the character of this place. But of course, to purify the air, reduce the heat island, and increase the capacity to coexistence between human, animals that are not only dog, and plants, we need, above all, quantity. So we have also an idea that sometimes it's better to work with quantity before than quality. And Bosco Verticale is a clear example in which the quantity is the topic of the project. It's not a question of quality, it's a question of quantity. Many trees, many bushes, and try to organize your offer in these directions. Of course, there are projects like Bosco Verticale in which the architecture and nature intervene, where architecture, in fact, slips light into background and become a sort of, let me say, support or scaffolding to host piece of nature, to host elements as trees, bushes, and animals that follow this piece of nature. In the same way, we approach another important project in Milan, that is the central hospital of the city. The historical hospital is 6th century of history of this hospital, and we try to again work with extensive and work with quantity. And so we decide to cover the central part of the hospital, the hard part of the hospital, that hide all the machine of the hospital, a huge, incredible, extensive garden. Is the most biggest roof garden in Italy, and perhaps I suppose also in Europe, that could be used by the patient, but also by the family, and sometimes also by the inhabitants. So in the center of the city, where it's not possible anymore to build park, garden, etc., because the city is completely well done, it's completely blocked, we increase this option, first of all, with quantity. Then, of course, is a second question is in which way do it. But, of course, in sometimes it's better, it could be interesting to work and force the direction working on quantity. And this is in construction nowadays. And the third one, sample, is, for example, to work in a vertical way. So it's very well known, this approach to produce extensive vertical facade. And we copy from Quai Branly, the very famous first proposal by Patrick Leblanc and Nouvelle to cover the facade by green. But at that time, that building was a public building where it's possible and easy to manage, because there is one institution, one owner that managed the building. Propose this kind of effect in a building where live 50 family, 50 inhabitants. It's completely changed the direction. It means that the citizens are prepared to work on this way and upset the fact that this one will become in the future a problematic question of discussion inside of the inhabitant of this place. But I mean, there is a movement in which this one could be possible. In that sense, I mean, sometimes some project must work only in quantity, add and teach, and help the people to understand that it could be possible. Of course, all those elements, this one, the hospital and Bosco Verticale, of course, this one and Bosco Verticale, are for high class of people. But this one, sometimes the revolution starts exactly from who have the possibility to activate the revolution for everybody later on. And the second groups of the project, second set of work that we group together, that have a more complex relationship with the nature and the sustainability. There are urban regeneration projects. It's extensive area abandoned, extensive ex-industrial area, or railway parks, abandoned railway parks. You can see it's located a little bit around the historical city center, rather than the other one that are completely on the city center, Bosco Verticale, the net are completely in the site, and are very wide, very big area. Most of the building placed in this kind of project are residences. We build in this area special social housing, and social housing means residential where the fees is defined by agreed with the public administration. So in case to be rent, in case to be sell. And this one helps to evaluate also another aspect of the sustainability, that is not only energy consumption, but is sustainability in terms of social impact. The idea that the work against the gentrification of we usually produce when we do a better piece of architecture, a better piece of master plan in the center or in the periphery of the city. Sometimes as our work produce, helped by the clients, a sort of gentrification. And this one work in this direction to try to contrast or work in this way. They are all projects open to up to the host neighborhood and providing green space, service and activity, thus implementing a concept of sustainability that structure connective tissue and relationship with services, reducing people movements, of course, because you produce in this wide area sort of microsystems of the city that include all the different function and all the different types of activities. With the construction of the cities of the 15 minutes. In this case, for example, we also keep more than 10 buildings existing. The heritage building, you can see this is the difference of the different space in which we organize the area. And this one is the situation nowadays. You can see in a little bit in green, the building that we decide to keep it are industrial heritage buildings. The municipality and the heritage department decide to keep it only 4, and we decide to go ahead and keep it 10 or 8 of these buildings in a way to consider that sustainability is also reduce the number of buildings that you have to demolish and try to reuse it. Even if the problem of reuse these buildings very old, it's complex in terms of money, budget, time, construction, etc., etc. And in this project, all the traditional idea of the squares, like tree-lined squares, avenues, urban garden, orchard, vegetable gardens, woodland, etc., follow one another's and overlap with each other without interruption. And you can see this idea. This is another one project in which you can see the numbers. So we try to keep this one because for us it's interesting. It's important to also underline some number of the project. The 60% of filtering surface. Filtering surface means that underground there is nothing built. It means that the nature is real nature that can be grow with big trees. Today the problem is that most of the big master plan have one underground built, and when you talk about trees, you talk about bonsai, you talk about something that don't grow more than 10 meters tall, but the trees usually are arrived at 30 meters. And this one becomes a very important element. So try to work on this element. 60% of surface filterings mean to open a better future for the nature tomorrow. And of course, the idea to create this kind of dimension of several kind of public space, not only one, in which the idea of do a park or do a garden or do agriculture become a sort of mixed space. So, you know, we are, let me say, usually we design a park for agriculture, a park for garden, a park for woodland. In this new concept, the idea is to match and merge this kind of 3 different typology in one solution without any type of continuities, and creating a sort of human adaptive zone that can be transformed over the time. So the idea that we can try to plant fruit trees and try to convince the inhabitant to become a group and manage with the option and with the app, the idea that you can take your peach during the correct season. And if you plant 100 trees of peach, why not consider it that the inhabitant of that place could manage this opportunity and sometimes could reduce, and also what you talked about before about the food problems in the walls, could be reduce the movement of the goods. This one is another project that we do exactly. You can see the idea of the complex systems of different gardens, different open space, different green space that could be extensive, but at the same time detailed with several type of that space, with a interesting, let me say, section and traditional boulevard or traditional avenue, but also urban orchard and extensive woodland like this one in the upper pictures. This one is another project we do at the same time. Where we can use or we can achieve many square meters of filtering surface. We try to increase the number of trees, or we try to increase other element or other value to be on the correct way. And that for reason that, I mean, there is no one unique option to be sustainable, but you need to be a little bit hybrid person and transforming according to the condition, because we design and we try to do answer to what the city needs, but also we have a client, we have a municipality, we have the impact of the real condition of the city. Talking about to improve the bicycle in Lisbon, I mean, it's a crazy idea. Who want to climb this hill with bicycle? I mean, me no, but no one want to do it. It's mean increase bicycle in Milan that is flat. Why not? It's a correct way to do it. It's completely flat. And also the grandfather using the bicycle. We forgot to use the bicycle. But so I mean, in any place there is one correct recipe. Not it's possible to take one recipe and use for every place. And this one, but you can see here the complex situation also to create a different way to use the green space. And all time the quantity, it's important part in a sort of proto-revolution. You know, when there was the proto-romantic poet, they was push a lot the idea of being romantic. And we are in a moment in which we must to push a lot the idea to increase the quantity, and then of course evaluate step by step the quality of what we are doing. And the third group of project, it's a little bit the third set. It's a little bit work on small scale and not institutional real estate operators. That is also an important fact, because you know that a good project is done by a good relationship with the client. So we are not alone. We need to give answer not only to the citizens that are our first final client, but we have a client that pay us our fees, and a client who have his own idea, a client who have a stay in the market. And in that case, there is a group of projects that we are doing today that are managed by a small real estate operators that change completely the relationship that they have with the cities, because most of the time they are Milanese rather than the biggest investor that come from outside and try to comes with own idea of the city that probably they put on in place in UK, in London, in Australia, not in the place where they have to operate. And this one gives us the possibility to reflect on some other topics about what I said before. Choose and learn more. So means to select, in this case, when you work with a small client, a small investor, small operator, the idea that it's probably better to select one or two topics and try to push this topic at the maximum level of possibility. So I saw the last year project in using woods. So probably in that case, the topic is to use one topic, one element, push on this direction and using woods. And the other things could be interesting, but could be also secondary, because we are not able to solve everything. We are not able to solve every answer that we receive when we start to do a project. And for example, this one is a small project for apartments in which, again, we try to increase in a city that never produced building with a large and deep terraces. Milan is a cold city. Milan have a architectural history in which balconies and loggia doesn't exist. We increase this idea to produce a good relationship with the satellite services at the apartment. That is exactly balconies and loggia, very deep. In this case, this building is facing to south, so protect the building by the solar impact that becomes more and more deep, or create a sort of canyon done by mineral elements like the facade and the big trees, and we convince the client to don't produce the same equivalent number apartment to parking plots, to preserve a piece of land, filtering and planting trees that could be and could become very tall as the building is, and produce a sort of canyon between the two elements, mineral architecture and natural architecture done by typical materials and done by trees. You can see here very clear this idea that reducing the underground space, even if the market pushed to do it. And this one is another project in the historical city center of Milan, smaller, only for social housing. This one in the historical city center in the Milanese Chinatown. There is we preserve all the facade, historical facade, and inside we produce 3 different courtyards, open and publics. One work on the idea to produce a woodland. You can see big trees without any particular design to reduce the impact of the sun. And the other courtyard, sorry for the picture that quite impossible to see it, but one is dedicated to agriculture, so urban orchard managed by the inhabitants, and the last one and the other one only for kids, so playground where the people can find his own personal space to enjoy the free time in open air. And all of those are connecting by passages. In a way, all the ground floor becomes public space with activities that can be also becomes a sort of control systems of the urban space during the 24-hour. Or the last one, I show you this one, for example, is again one simple project, very small compared to the other one that I showed you before, in which we decide to select only 2 elements. Again, in this case, the big loggias and also a vertical trees, a vertical void, a vertical immaterial patio, because no one can stay inside of this void. But the idea to produce a sort of vertical element that can help the circulation of the air, and in a sort of sense becomes a sort of natural chimney that, helped by the presence of the nature, can move the air in a city where there is no wind. In Milan there is no wind compared to your cities. Of my hometown, I came from Genova, where the wind is a element presence all of the time, and so without wind you can clean the space. And the idea to produce this one. So the idea of the last group of projects is exactly this one. Try to reduce your interest in some small elements and try to push it till the end, because of course the project of the passages in the project is many, and sometimes passing through preliminary design, definitive design, executive design, you lose pieces, you lose idea, you lose, let me say, dreams that you put it at the beginning of your processes. So exactly in this case, the idea is to reduce your effort and focus on someone that at the end you can say that you can mark as a possible solution for reduce the impact of our works. Thank you.
Use the microphone. Hello? Is this working? Oh, cool. Okay. Well, thank you, Open House, for having me here, Triennale. It's always nice to be back here. I love this place. How do I missed the... Can you help me here? How to get to my presentation? Oh, cool. Okay, thanks. No. Back. This way, okay. I have a small firm. We make small buildings. I work with my wife, Matilda. I think she's around there. Oh, she's over there. My clients, they're always, they open to experimental processes. So I tend to build not more than a couple kilometers from my office. So I have all my works are around my office. It all started with when I was working in the Netherlands for a company that was manufacturing clay-based materials, like non-baked clay materials. And then I came to Portugal and I thought I would start my own company just making the mixes and the paints and plasters for architects. But then, so I ordered a whole container of raw materials and then I was stuck with it. And so I bankrupted without starting because I had no orders and no one actually knew how to do that. So anyways, I went with my former partner, Pedro. He now has his own office. We went out looking for raw materials in Portugal, and we started to make a library of geological resources. A very large library that was always hand in hand with experimentation on these materials. So, it's not about chemistry. Building has more to do with sculpting than chemistry, in the sense that chemistry doesn't tell you everything. You need to try it directly, physically, so you get to terms with stacking stuff together. And so we made, like, I would say, thousands of sampling exercises, to the point that we got a commission from a lawyer, this really tough lawyer, saying, I want to have my whole house with a stamp earth flooring. That's not the perfect context for a commission, that you have a lawyer asking you to make this. So, but we took it very seriously, and we made, like, all the samplings, and we ended up playing a trick which the lawyer never found out, I guess, which is very hard to ram the flooring, because when you ram it here, then it goes up over there, and then you have to run there and ram it there, and it's like a whole mess. So we broke it down into this grid. We made this wood grid, and then we could stamp the earth flooring into each squares, rectangles. And then it went on, and we made the whole house with clay, and then we got into the bathroom areas, and we also started to, we were very motivated to find out how to handle this, because we know it's been handled before. In history shows you that clay solutions and earth-based solutions were answering to all needs. And so we got very seriously into the world of natural resins and oils and waxes, but it was a difficult access because it's very expensive. You don't have it on bulk supply, so you really need. So we got our own beehives, and we started fabricating our own waxes, and that led us to an understanding of the richness of nature. It's unbelievable. I mean, when people say, like, bees are chemists, they are. I mean, for instance, we were harvesting our own propolis, which is a very expensive kind of resin made by bees. Depending on the context of the beehive, if the bees were afraid of frost or fire, or if there was something getting into the beehive that was like a threat, then they would produce a different kind of propolis. And that was quite fascinating, because that's, it was clear to me, like, if you want to get rid of a certain fungus, then you just insert it into the beehive and you check how the bees will react to the fungus. And that's actually how it works. Then you see pharmaceutical trials with beehives, and they insert different funguses and then go and check what kind of plants the bees go harvest to combat the fungus or bacteria. So, it's a huge world. And that has a parallel with building construction and architecture. What you find in pharmaceuticals on waxes, you will find it on results when you apply it onto plasters, onto paints, onto all sorts of substrates. So when you check for the behavior of an oil or a wax or resin, you usually put it against the glass so you can see it. Can see through, and you see all the cracks, and you see whether it oxidizes fast or it doesn't. So we started making our own sort of stained glass that was derived from our experimental research on oils. And there was a point that we started to with this idea of sourcing ourselves. Then we got this commission where we made the whole building. We were mining the site for stones and for clays and for, basically most of what we needed, except for steel or cork, which we didn't have in that site. But that was quite, lesson I've learned, that there's so much resource. I mean, there's so much available to us, and we almost sort of tend to be, I risk the word indoctrinated, not to look at the real resources and not to be sovereign on our own resources. So for me, there's no talk of sustainability without talking of sovereignty. If we're not free, we're not sustainable. If we're poor, then we're done. You see what happened to the UK? They got the energy crisis and the forests are gone. I mean, they've been sort of taking out trees like never before. So sovereignty has to go hands in hand with sustainability. Otherwise, it's just fakery, and in the best case. Because the worst case is that it's fakery used to subdue people and communities. So, we should open our eyes to this because it's sort of in the air. We've been fabricating our own tools from the most, pragmatic approach to the more complex ones, and organizing resources so we can look at them and come to results that are led by resources. These are known design. I mean, there's very little design in this. This is just made by what's there and how to manage. At some point, I got this commission. This one was far from my office. I mean, it was in the Douro. And what did I want to say about this? Oh yeah, about wood. Yeah, when we got to this farmhouse, they were like, oh, look at the views and this and that and that, and they had like huge barrels, like wine barrels, and they thought, okay, let's break this down and get rid of this wood. I said, look at what's in here, all the craftsmanship in this wine barrels, and then, it really woke me up to. It was a moment that wood became very present into my work, we were then making exercises and starting to know what wood is. I mean, wood is cellulose, right? It's sugar. So we're walking on sugar at this point. Okay, this is sugar. Okay, it's cellulose. It's the same molecule. It's CHO. And it's an amazing material, especially if you think of it as sugar, as something that you can turn into caramel. You see, like sugar, then it dissolves into water, and then it becomes something like very hard. And this is the same story. That's how a tree works. It harvests sugar, it goes up into the leaves, and then when it comes down, then it condensates, and it becomes caramel at the place where the tree has the most strength. So if this branch is like suffering, then there's a lot of condensation around here, and then the buildup of cellulose. And this was quite amazing. I mean, we started to book our own trees. When I go in the street and I see like, whoa, what amazing tree, and then it's all like wasted land, and I try to find who's the owner. Can I book this tree? Can I have it for myself when I need to build? And so we can work with our own, so we know things from the source. And I think, then I had this small commission for a house where it all came together somehow. I mean, we were working with earth, we were making our own compressed tiles, compressed earth tiles. We were using all sort of waxes to make the plasters to behave like we wanted to. We made the whole house out of, I mean, you can't quite see it, but like the top part there, like the roofs are all also made with this reed, like small canes from the riverside. This is our first production of compressed floor tiles. Oh yeah, nice. We have some pictures here. Well, we made this machine so we could press them. I mean, we actually make the machine to press bricks. I'm not showing you the work with bricks, but we made this machine to press bricks, but it was not strong enough. So we used it. Then it came like, what can we do with this whole thing we made and it doesn't work? Then we started to use it for floor tiles, and we make another one for bricks. And then start this building. Oh, this the cracks in the walls and the salitre. I don't know how to say salitre, like the salts that come. That there's a whole world of behavior that is different from what you used to, because we used to work with alkaline constructions. Like buildings are immensely alkaline, like cement, so we need to have alkaline compatible materials to build with. So we basically building with alkaline families. But nature is is dominantly acidic. So when you mix acidic with alkaline, you have reactions which are not nice for buildings. You know, it turns into soap sometimes, you know. So once you start to build with natural materials, then you have a whole range of immense, like proteins and all sorts of things you can use to bring into your construction, and it will work, it will stay, it will be a feasible building material. So I'm always amazed with what these buildings become, because I don't truly control the whole process. Yes, these are beeswax stained glass. You know, then, you know, this was the moment that, you know, the world of living materials, the world of geology, and the world of plants came together. And I've learned a lot from it. But then there was this thing like, okay, how can we make this, how can we scale this up? How can we make it more than just like a tiny, small building made by this garage architect? And yeah, when you get at this point, you have to think of nature gave us something that is so amazing. I mean, it's absolutely, it's fast growing. These are machines that make photosynthesis. These are the C4 plants. If you go into the graph of photosynthesis, the speed of photosynthesis, you have a graph. You know, certain plants, they do it really fast, and the others doesn't. And this C4 group of plants, where hemp, bamboo, grasses, many different sorts of grasses, paulownia, they are into this family. These trees, they turn sunlight and water into cellulose, super fast. And so that's possibly an answer to our quest for materials and the scarcity of materials, that we start to look at this C4 group of plants and start to bring it into the building side, into our projects. So we sort of retrofitted this machine to make it a hemp production line. So there was no hemp buildings in Portugal, at least like no normalized, nothing that would really feed architects. You know, there were some trials, like sort of hippie constructions, but not something that gives you ground for making your own projects. So we set off saying, okay, let's collect hemp. Let's make this happen. Let's make a whole production line. Let's test it. Let's make a building and show, like, at least that to our, you know, close colleagues and friends, know that this is viable. Portugal was the main exporter of hemp for 2 centuries. We had a royal company of hemp and linen exports, and we were, like, in the Western world, the main exporter of this material. So, you know, we work with large-scale models. We had to make our own machine to press bricks. We made this is my office, my workshop, an office that is over there. Yeah, and we made our whole production of bricks. We need to make one-to-one prototypes to get the prices from contractors and builders to drop the price, mostly, you know, because you don't get good pricing if you don't make a one-to-one scale prototype. And we went to the building site and we produced this one, 1,500 square meters building with different techniques. There's no time. I would love to explain you, like, all varieties of this plastering. You have to test the plasters, so a wall is not just bricks. You know, you have all these layers. They have to work together. And then finally, some Israeli investors, they came to Portugal. I used to publish everything, like recipes and stuff. I really publish it. I don't patent anything. I don't go through this, nightmare scenario of patenting things. But anyways, they had it all. They had a whole production line. They had all the recipes. They had a pilot building made. So they made a massive industry in the south of Portugal. These guys, Cangamor. And now they, like, quadrupling, they making it like 4-fold bigger from July on. So it's like a success. I mean, it's working. The work we made organizing farmers, so we got supply for this one building, which used 14 hectares of hemp, but there was no 14 hectares of hemp in Portugal available for a building like this. So we had to organize farmers and get them together to make this happen. Then these guys are doing the same on a very large scale, which is really amazing to see, and I'm very happy with it. And then we went forward, like going, dyeing hemp, making multi-layer possibilities, so it becomes even more cost-effective, more interesting for builders. We use indigo. There was our first trial with multi-layered hemp blocks. It was these small studios, these indigo bricks. So you can see them, the bluish ones over there. And it was very interesting. I mean, we got, you can, it's not yet in the market. I mean, I don't see any supplier of such multi-layer blocks, but I'm sure it will come very soon. And then we thought, well, why just making one layer to the inside? We can make a layer in the outside. We can make a 3 layers brick, so the outside is resisting to the weather conditions, inside is keeping the warmth and breathable, etc. It's beautiful, and then the inside layer is like the massive working layer of the block. So okay, then we thought of charcoal, and charcoal came into the garage then. Okay, so we made all stupid machines because charcoal, it makes so much smoke everywhere. So this to exhaust the fumes and try to burn the hemp to make it more resistant. And at the moment we were like finishing our trials, like getting our first prototype. There was a curator came into our office and said, "Hey guys, I want to make the replica of Van Eyck's Sonnensbeek pavilion in my museum with those blocks." And we're like, okay, that's not what we were planned to do. We never made the 3 layers block actually, because we had this huge commission to make this copy of the pavilion. So here we go, we make the blocks and we set up these huge walls, and it all went fine, and lots of all this communication from the exhibition. We realized a lot of stuff about biochar and charcoal. It's like amazing material. I mean, you can't believe how important it is. I mean, biochar is a nano-porous material which impacts on electromagnetic fields. So it can be used for military purposes, can be used for civilian purposes. If you want to shield, like maternity houses, or shield from electromagnetic toxicity, then biochar is amazing. It's also cleaning the air. It's like there's a whole range of possibilities. But when the exhibition ended, they said, "Yeah, you have to take it all down." And we said, it was not agreed. I mean, we usually, if I want to keep the exhibition, I do it. But if not, then the museum house, they would take care of that. But they said, "Man, it's huge. What can I do with all these walls and like the Sonnensbeek pavilion in biochar?" So, but at that point, I had a building that was like this. It's my sister's house. And I thought, wow, let's cut it into parts and let's, make this sort of prefab hemp biochar walls. I mean, you see all these words like quite awkward, like prefabbing masonry, which is like something that you should take a look at. It's not that straightforward, and it's not happening successfully often. So, but in this case, I mean, we managed, and I was completely surprised with how strong those walls were and how the blocks held together. I mean, not one part of the wall broke apart. I mean, we sliced it up, we put it into our truck, we bring it to the warehouse, we finished the cuts again, we load it in, we bring it to the building site, we put it into a crane, we get it up, you have to pull it in. I mean, all these steps, and then not a single one broke. I mean, it was quite amazing. So I went to the Kangamore guys, to the Israeli guys, say, "Hey guys, remember, I mean, prefab on hempcrete blocks is like something you should seriously think about." And I hope there's something more coming into this field. So, well, we made these biochar blocks. You see, they fit into the wood grid, and we use this nasty styrofoam to fill the, non-sustainable. And then we also had leftovers from other buildings. We smashed them. We adapted this machine to recycle the. You see here, I mean, you see the wood is sticking out of the wall. So we added an extra layer of recycled hemp into the walls. So the walls were all in wood. It looks like a Nordic cabin or something. I mean, it's like massive hemp walls behind it with biochar hemp and with recycled hemp, which was quite a learning process, and we should publish that rather soon. Anyways, with biochar, then we get into another level, and I'm just finishing. How much time do I have? 2 minutes? Okay. Or 2 minutes beyond. Oh, okay, sorry. Okay. No, it's biochar, is the source for fertilizers. I mean, of course you need nitrogen, ammonias, or a lot of stuff, but biochar is the element that will hold everything together. So if, like for millennia, us as human beings, we hold a key role in the chain of species in nature. This story is not told to us. I don't know why. I mean, we have a key position in the natural world, which is to promote biodiversity and to boost nature. You see the pre-Columbian prairies with all the buffaloes and all. It was made by Indians. They fertilized the prairies. There was grass. There were buffaloes. There were different species, and it all flourishes. In Amazonia, like the most abundant and impressive part of Amazonia was made by human beings. We made the black soil. This is black soil. Amazonia is a very unfertile land. It's washed by water. No nutrients are held on the soil. But then Indians, they came, they add biochar, and they fertilize, they add nutrients to the biochar, and this becomes like a fertile bone. It's like something, it's the most fertile part of the world next to Ukraine. And the war we see in Ukraine now is a food war. It's the privatization of the black land in Ukraine, which was actually in the Second World War. There were trucks with black land, black soil coming from Ukraine down into Central Europe, because this is magic. Okay, so once you have biochar. See, I mean, I had this image because this woke me up, into the amazement of biochar. Is that the Second World War, Russia could defeat the German troops with, you see, these are trucks running on biochar machines like this, like the one we made for the Biennale in Veneza is coming to here, I guess, tomorrow. It's a machine. You add small bits of wood. You get lots of hydrogen on one side, and you get biochar on the other side. This biochar, you can make fertilizer to get more wood, and then the hydrogen, you can make a lot of stuff with it. You charge your phones and stuff. So, yeah, I think, okay, it's over. How much what?
Thank you very much, all of you, the three of you, for sharing this common attitude, even if it's from different also perspectives. There's ways of working or facing the issue on social sustainability, also the ecological or environmental one, and the economic one. And there's something that I did want to ask you. We have only some minutes, and we'll open it also to the audience, on how there is a strong impact in construction before the construction takes place. So when you're designing or when you're thinking about it, but when you're thinking about where the materials proceed from or where they will be used from, the moment of the construction, and then the aftermath, or once, sometimes we kind of are not that much related any longer to the project. So I wanted to ask you if you kind of measure somehow this impact in these three different moments of the processes that take into consideration the construction and therefore this environmental impact that it has. I mean, you produce the blocks from different experimental or kind of research-based processes. Are you already also then calculating which impact the use of carbon or the carbon that is kind of being used for that production, and then how it will be related to the afterlife of that material?
Yeah. No, we're not doing that. It's LCA, right? The life cycle analysis of. We're not doing that because that's useful when you work with very complex processes where you don't know where things come from, where you don't know, the impact. You don't know. You don't. But when you work with very simple, low processment techniques, and these are coming from trees and they're going back into trees, and that hemp is the material that has the most negative carbon footprints. So I work on basic assumptions that isentam, that makes so that I don't go deep into the life cycle analysis. So make sure your basic assumptions are correct, and then I think that's becoming not as significant as other.
And it has a long life kind of expectancy. These more
long life expectancy has to do not with how long it lives, but what's the cost of something. What's the cost of making it alive? I mean, we can live to 200 years old, but that's immensely costly, no? I mean, the same thing with materials. So yeah, when you work with materials which maintenance is very low cost, then you can just rest that they're very durable.
No, but our listen definitely. Well, it's our driver in the first stages. It's I suppose it's much more to be coherent with the. So it's logic. Looks like logic to build in wood, but close to our place we in Italy we built in concrete, and in every place with the new concrete. So why buy wood that coming from Finland and have to do kilometers and kilometers to come in? And probably not all solutions that looks like better are logic for a place we are building. And it's the same way to why eat tomatoes in January that come from Sicily. Why you from Spain eat in advance orange coming from Morocco and sell to us your orange that arrived before our orange that come from Sicily. So in Italy we built in concrete and we go away to build in concrete, or we try to transform step by step. We can do mixed systems. Concrete the structure that remain because we do architecture. Architectures, it's something that concerns to transform a place. The architecture start with an excavation, so we are very violent with the place. We need to escape something and produce a disaster. And so when we do architecture, we say, okay, structure, like our bones, could be done in structure using what is simple for you. We can find your place, structure in concrete, and then probably the other part in wood or in the steel, etc. So the driver is exactly to be able to be hybrid and be able to select what is for your place, for the place we are doing the project, the best solution. Because otherwise we can start only to copy and paste something that comes from a very, very far away. So it's to become too complex, because then becomes like a sort of collection of the best practices all over the world, without considering that the best practice that you do at your own could be not the same best practice at all mile. So we are driven by this idea.
But also when you speak about concrete, reinforced concrete and so on, there's different kind of impacts if it's prefabricated elements or if they are cast on site. So you do kind of take those into consideration. All right.
Line, we are trying also to improve and to get more out of the knowledge. And regarding of concrete, we loved the use of concrete. We thought we were about to beans their potentiality, their expressiveness by using it in a whole way into the buildings. But now we know that the carbon footprint is so high, it's not the way. So now where there's no alternative in the foundations and so on, we continue trying to use the concrete in the solution, but changing into the other more sustainable materials. And always in its context, there is a precise response to this previous concept. I also tried to explain as a small recipe to follow.
Do we have any questions from the audience? In the meantime, no question? Okay, there's one over there. We don't hear.
It's on, you can hear me. Okay. The question is about the render tiles. How do you make them waterproof? Do you use the wax or the linseed oil? What are the options? And the same for the hemp bricks. You just use the clay plaster, or do you also use some other waterproof product?
Hello? I don't know. I don't need this maybe. The tiles, I think the trick, I mean, you have to add some lime to it, or lime or cement. But what makes it really waterproof is the layering of linseed oil versus wax. Because depending on the material you want to layer, you want to make the layering of wax, you want to make it very liquid and then make it thicker and thicker, or the other way around, depending on how porous it is. But with this linseed oil tiles, you really want to make it like very thin, so it gets deep into the tiles, and then like 2 more layers, and it's done with linseed oil. And the hemp. Yes, I did. We have them outside, so they get kind of with como se diz musgo, moss, kind of mossy, and I use them in ground floor, like excavated ground floor, and they're fine. So yeah, it's quite surprising actually. It's very pragmatic option.
And those were certified? Were those materials certified, both of them?
No, we make a few tests, like for instance the water dripping tests. We make a couple of tests and we have them on site. That's how we work it in the Netherlands, and that's how I keep working in Portugal. I rather, the most learning is from applying it and let it age. So this one building I've shown to you is from 2016, so it's like 9 years, and they're fine. We've applied them in other buildings as well, and we hadn't any problem with them. So yeah, and hemp is not resistant to water. So the hemp blocks are not resisting to water. We wanted to make them resistant.
They are not resistant?
No, they are not. With this charcoal option, what we wanted to do, we wanted to make them resistant to water by adding a layer of charcoal in the outside, and then adding a layer of fat to the charcoal, so that the water just drips and doesn't get stuck into the block. But we never got to that point. I think it's not that far from happening, I think.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Robert Newcomb. I'm from Santiago, Chile, and part of the Open House Worldwide Network. I wanted to ask briefly about the materials, continuing the questions of one of the big issues in Chile is the seismic activity and really high demands for structural performance. But beyond that is the credibility of materials and new materials. We're quite interested also in construction with earth, but a lot of times earth is stigmatized as material because it's considered it won't perform under seismic conditions. And I was just curious, you're talking about lots of materials which are obviously natural, they've been around for a very long time, but at the same time, they're not accepted in the industry, in the production chains of globalized materials, right? And I was just curious, you mentioned lots of things that sound relatively experimental in the construction industry. And are you certifying them? Are you testing them under conditions? And how do you see the future of those materials that you're developing within like a legislative or a construction norms context?
I'm not an industrialist. I don't want to, be like producing huge amounts and selling, make my life out of a production of blocks. So the certification is necessary when you export. Aside from that, you need technical sheets, and that you can make with local labs. We make our tests for the building purpose. So I'm architect, I'm builder. I have my own team of engineers, and so I try to get rid of all the fear people in the chain, so I can use the materials I know that they work. But sometimes I need to have tested, so my team can also take responsibility for what we're doing. And these are very simple, cheap tests. I mean, laboratories are not like, people tend to think they're like unattainable or something, but it's not like that. And yeah, the legislation is made so that you don't have an interference of traditional materials with modern materials. I mean, the whole patent legislation and the normatives and the tests are made in a way that it's very difficult for you to take traditional based techniques into the markets. Okay, for numerous reasons, but we can all kind of sense that it's not convenient for the industry, modern industry, to have interference of materials that you don't need to process. You don't need energy, and it's at reach of everyone. Yeah, that's another story.
Thank you.
Yesterday, the colleague from the Milan City Council spoke about the importance of kind of making this awareness towards these attitudes and changing ways of doing and so on from a very, very early stage with kids and so on. Do you have any, or have you had kind of any experience in which your own experience through architecture is shared before architecture school? Something is teaching, another thing is maybe with elementary schools or so on.
I mean, I'm not sure if I understood correctly the question, but I mean, of course, my experience with Serpent was with Epicales, one project that explain and give attention also from the kids that usually are not interested in architecture. Usually are not interested in the effect of the transformation of the city. And of course was an experience to, when I talk about that sometimes some project becomes a manifesto, and when the project becomes manifesto is a problem for the project, of course, because it becomes superficial, but at the same time is the opportunity and occasion to be able to open at the discussion. Of course, Bosco Verticale is not a super champions of is not a champions of my English is translated directly from Italian, that is not so correct, but it's not a champions of energy consumption. So there is many concrete, many steel, there is heavy from the earth, keeping and hanging the trees. But in a sort of sense, sometimes some project becomes a key for open the discussion. And I know that if you start to talk about this problem at the beginning of your experience, so of course for our generation wasn't like this. So we start to discuss about an environmental problem, etc. When we was older, you can. Let me say, produce a good effect for the future generation. This, of course, and we did a school, American school, in which they work and they teach all the materials through the design, and they teach all the materials through the design linked to the environmental possibilities. And they do mathematics, they do history only through this approach. So, of course, it's nothing concerning
our job. So I did the school, I did the buildings, but I know there is start to have a sort of capability to discuss about all the facts with this filter, and this one could help for the future generation to be much more conscious of this problem, of course. It's American school that is named ICS. It's a school that work in this way. We did the building, and it's very interesting because the kids was super interesting in the project, but super interesting in the topic of energy consumption, environmental approach, problematic of achieving the sustainability. That was very strange because our kids, because they study all the materials through this point of view, design approach and environmental approach. And this one is the unique way, I mean, it's supposed to increase this consciousness.
From your side, with the younger generations, for example? I'm saying this because we're in this context of open house, which opens places to many different kinds of people, no? From kids to adults and so on. And I mean, giving visibility, some things are very, very visually kind of attractive and so on. Some are less known, but by sharing the experiences of the authors of those projects, those people involved and so on, it's also a way of kind of being much more aware of it. And I think that there's a question over here.
Just following your question, Ivan, I also think like open house has the possibility to show the architecture to a very wide audience, and they learn about the buildings, how they're made, and how they live further. So it's interesting, maybe you could share from your experience when you work with the client. Do they come with a, for example, demand for a sustainable building, or it's rather you who are pushing towards kind of implementing some change in their proposed brief to make it more sustainable? And then what is kind of like your stories, personal stories?
Okay. In my case, there are lots of different experience, but what I try interesting is the fact that with empathy and with dialogue, with reasons, with time to listen to you, with time to listen to me, if we achieve an agreement of two people, it will always be more interesting than two separate decisions of two people. No, I give it more value, no? to evolve together, no? With your knowledge, with my knowledge, with our discussion, with our dialogue. No, so I try to push all the relations in these processes, long processes with clients, so in this line.
No, go ahead. Yeah. I suppose that there is no good project without a good client. This is for sure, because it's impossible to do a big project or a good project alone. It's so if the client is a good client, you can do a good project. But at the end, it's also the client who wants to sell his products. So at the end, it's normal. It's in the market. So you can close your eyes and say, "I do a perfect job for the future generation," and blah 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 blah. You can do it if in front of you there is someone that understands this one. And to do this, the best way is to do a project that he can sell on the market good, in a good way. If your proposal, according to the question of sustainability, produce an extra value for his work, for his product, of course you can follow you and you could follow him. So I mean, otherwise it becomes a sort of contrast that you are on the table and you speak about future, and your client become, he close your hair because he don't want to, he risk many money, absolutely a tons of money doing an operation in the city. When you're talking about doing but it's equal when you're talking about someone that want to do his own villas, his own apartments. It's a question of relationship or proportion, because architecture costs a lot of money, costs a lot of time to do a building. And in this time, there is many things happens. I started to do project before COVID, before the war in Ukraine, and all those events produce need us to change the project, to redefine the project, remodify the project, because for problem coming from not providing materials or economical crisis or doubt about the future because the people becomes crazy or changes idea about the work at home or work in the offices, stay at home or go in the offices. And so you can imagine, architecture is something that I have project that I start the Policlinico. I won the competition in 2007. So you know, what does it mean? And Bosco Verticale, we start to project the Bosco Verticale in 2005 and we finish 2015. 10 years, in 10 years happens a tons of things. And so, I mean, the unique way to do the good project, also in terms of problems of environmental and sustainability, is to link with your client and do the same way. And try to understand that he invests a lot of money, that he risks a lot of money, much more than you, that are designer. And this one is a question that you can balance, and you can be a little bit, in Italy, say democratic, you know, in terms of you'd have to balance the opportunity and then the possibility. Otherwise, you produce a short circuit, not qualified, but also negative. And this one is, our approach is all time like this.
Yeah, I think it's all said. Except that in my case, I think sometimes because my projects are small, I risk more money than my client.
It's important.
That he risks more money than the clients in his case. So I think that it was interesting, or very interesting, that yesterday we spoke about governance and today about sustainability in urban planning, and now achieving sustainability in architecture. It's been separated in 3 different parts to organize ourselves, but we are very aware that everything goes together all the time. It was interesting as well to see how many architects are involved in the political strata. So where there's policy making and also decision making and so on, so that there can be an influence when taking decisions. So I want to thank the 3 of you and also the organization for making this conversation possible, that it helps us in continuing. Thank you very much. Marta. Grazie. Obrigado.